Let me once again welcome you to this channel. So today we are going to take up a chapter, and the title of the chapter is Indigo. Indigo, written by Louis Fisher. Now, the first question that comes to our mind is, what is indigo? Indigo is a plant from which we make color or dye. Now, for our convenience, we can divide this chapter into three parts. The first part talks about the Champaran episode. What is this Champaran episode? Now, a brief introduction. A Champaran episode was Gandhi's first major movement in India. Prior to the Champaran movement, people did not know Gandhi. It was only after the Champaran episode that Gandhi came to the limelight and people started knowing Gandhi. So, the first part deals with the Champaran episode, the second part deals with the contribution that Gandhi made in the Champaran district. And the third part talks about the lesson that he teaches the people. He teaches the people a lesson in self reliance. Now, what is self reliance? Self reliance means Atmanirbhar in Hindi. We have programs like Atmanirbhar Bharat. So, self reliant India, that means. So, that is what he teaches the people a lesson in self reliance. Now, let us begin the chapter Indigo. Louis Fisher, a slight introduction of the author. Louis Fisher was born in Philadelphia. He served as a volunteer in the British Army between 1918 and 1920. Fisher made a career as a journalist and wrote for the New York Times. He was a journalist also, so he would write for prestigious papers like the New York Times, the Saturday Review, and for European and Asian publications also. He was a member of the faculty at Princeton University. The piece that we are going to do is the following is an excerpt from his book, The Life of Mahatma Gandhi. The book has been reviewed as one of the best books ever written on Gandhi by Times Educational Supplement. Now, this piece that we are going to do has been extracted from one of his books titled The Life of Mahatma Gandhi, and this book has been considered as one of the best books ever written on Gandhi. Now, Louis Fisher says that the first time he met Gandhi was in 1942 at his ashram in Sevagram in central India. So that was the first time he met Gandhi, and that is when Gandhi had told him about how he decided to urge the departure of the British. Now, Gandhi had informed him that everything started in 1917. So that is how Gandhi came to the limelight. He says that everything started in 1917, that his struggle for independence began in India. He had gone to the December 1916 annual convention of the Indian National Congress Party in Lucknow. So, this is Gandhi's version. Gandhi says that it was in 1916 that there was an annual convention of the Indian National Congress Party in Lucknow. There were a lot of people who were there in that meeting or convention. There were 2,301 delegates and many visitors were also there. During the proceedings, Gandhi recounted, a peasant came up to me looking like any other peasant in India, poor and emaciated, and said, I am Rajkumar Shukla, I am from Champaran, and I want you to come to my district. Now, it was during this annual convention of 1916 that a person, a peasant, a farmer approached Gandhi and introduced himself as Rajkumar Shukla. He looked like any other peasant, was poor, poorly dressed, and he introduced himself as Rajkumar Shukla, and he also said that he was from the Champaran district and he wanted Gandhi to come with him to the district and solve the problems that the people were facing. Now, prior to that, Gandhi had never heard of this place. So, Shukla informed him that it was in the foothills of the towering Himalayas near the kingdom of Nepal. Now, under an ancient arrangement, the Champaran peasants were sharecroppers. Now, the peasants, the workers, the farmers in the Champaran district were sharecroppers, and it was under an ancient arrangement. It was from before only that system was going on. Sharecropper means they get a share of the crop that they produce. Rajkumar Shukla was himself a sharecropper, and although he was illiterate, but he was very, very resolute. He had come to Congress session to complain about the landlord injustice of the landlord system in Bihar. Now, Rajkumar Shukla was very unhappy with the injustice that the landlords were doing, and that is why he wanted somebody, and probably somebody had given him an idea that you can meet Gandhi, and that is why he had gone to Gandhi and requested him to come to Champaran district. So Gandhi was reluctant to go to this place with this man. So Gandhi told Shukla that he had an appointment in Kanpur and was also committed to go to other parts of India. So he said that he had a lot of appointments and he could not spare time, and he will not be able to go. But Shukla kept on accompanying Gandhi everywhere. Okay, when Gandhi returned to his ashram near Ahmedabad, Shukla followed him to the ashram. For weeks, he never left Gandhi's side. Fix a date, he begged. And he was so resolute, so determined, so adamant that he started following Gandhi and started begging him to give him a date when Gandhi will be free so that he can take him to Champaran district. Fix a date, he begged. Gandhi was very, very impressed with the sharecropper's tenacity and story. Gandhi said, I will be in Calcutta on such and such a date. Come and meet me and take me from there. So ultimately, Gandhi agrees to go to Champaran. He tells Rajkumar Shukla that at such and such on such and such date he has to be present in Calcutta, and then Rajkumar Shukla can come to Calcutta on that particular date and meet him there, and from there Gandhi will be going with him to Champaran. So months passed. Shukla was sitting on his haunches. That means sitting on his haunches. Shukla was sitting in ready position at the appointed spot in Calcutta when Gandhi arrived. So when Gandhi had given him a date. So before that only Shukla was sitting in a ready position to meet Gandhi out there and take him to Champaran. So when Gandhi arrived in Calcutta for that particular work, he found Shukla waiting, and after he had completed his work, they boarded. When Gandhi was free, both of them boarded a train for the city of Patna in Bihar. So after completing his work in Calcutta, he boarded a train, and then both of them left for Bihar. There Shukla led him to the house of a lawyer named Rajendra Prasad. Now he had come to Bihar. Now so Rajkumar Shukla took Gandhi to the house of Rajendra Prasad. Rajendra Prasad is a well-known personality. We know him, who later became the president of the Congress Party and of India also. So Rajendra Prasad was out of town. On that particular day when Shukla went with Gandhi to Rajendra Prasad's house, Rajendra Prasad was out of town. But the servants of servants knew Rajkumar Shukla as a poor yeoman, as a poor peasant, that is, who pestered their master to help the indigo sharecroppers. So the servants of Rajkumar Shukla knew the servants of Rajendra Prasad knew Rajkumar Shukla as a peasant, so they let him stay. They allowed him to stay in his house on the ground. So they let him stay on the grounds with his companion. So nobody knew Gandhi by that time. So they allowed him to stay with Gandhi in their house, whom they took to be another peasant. So for the timing, they thought that Gandhi was also one of the sharecroppers. But Gandhi was not permitted to draw water from the well, lest some drops from the bucket pollute the entire source. How did they know that he was not an untouchable? Only one condition was there from the servant's side, that they asked Rajkumar Shukla that his companion should not take out water or draw water from the well, because they did not know whether he was an untouchable or not. So And this part reflects on the social evils that was present in the Indian society at that time. Untouchability is a social evil and it was practiced rampantly during those days. So anyway, Rajkumar Shukla and Gandhi stay in Rajendra Prasad's house, although Rajendra Prasad is not there. So, but Gandhi is not allowed to draw any water from the well. So from Rajkumar Shukla's house, Gandhi decided to first go to Champaran. Gandhi decided to go, first to Muzaffarpur, which was en route to Champaran. So before proceeding to Champaran district, first he decides to go to Muzaffarpur. Why Muzaffarpur? There is a reason for Gandhi to first go to Muzaffarpur. Now he wanted complete information about condition that Shukla was capable of imparting. Now Shukla was illiterate, he was a peasant, so he could not provide Gandhi with all the information that Gandhi required to fight for the indigo sharecropper. So he decided that let me go to Muzaffarpur, and there he knew some people, and those people will be able to provide him with other information also which he required to fight against the injustice of the landlords. Now he accordingly sent a telegram to Professor J.B. Kriplani of the Art College of Muzaffarpur, whom he had seen at Tagore Shantiniketan school. So from Rajkumar Shukla, from Rajendra Prasad's house, he went to Muzaffarpur, and before reaching Muzaffarpur, he telegrams one of his friends, J.B. Kriplani, about his arrival, informs him about his arrival. So he arrived at midnight on 15 April 1917. Kriplani was waiting at the station with a large body of students. Gandhi stayed there for 2 days in the house of Professor Malkani, a teacher in a government school. So Kriplani made arrangement for Gandhi's lodging in the house of a Professor Malkani. And Professor Malkani was a government teacher. And Gandhi is very, very impressed because during those days, nobody showed any sympathy towards the advocates of home rule. And Gandhi was an advocate of home rule. He was fighting for home rule. And he says it was an extraordinary thing in those days. Gandhi commented, what is extraordinary? Extraordinary is the thing for a government professor to provide shelter to a man like me, to harbor a man like me, or to provide shelter to a man like me. So Professor Malkani had provided him shelter for 2 days in spite of being a government teacher. That means he says that it is extraordinary because people were frightened to show any sympathy. In smaller localities, the Indians were afraid to show sympathy for the advocates of home rule. So people were frightened to show any sympathy towards the advocates of home rule, and Gandhi was fighting for the freedom of India. And he, being a government servant, decided to provide lodging to Gandhi for 2 days, and that is why Gandhi calls it an extraordinary thing, because in those days nobody showed any sympathy towards the advocates of home rule. The news of Gandhi's arrival, that is, and of the nature of his mission spread quickly through Muzaffarpur and to Champaran. Now, as soon as he reached Muzaffarpur, slowly the people in Champaran district also came to know about the arrival of Gandhi, and why they also came to know why he was coming there. The reason why he was going to Champaran was to fight against the injustice of the British landlords. And so sharecroppers from Champaran began arriving on foot. So as soon as people came to know about Gandhi's arrival, people from Champaran also, sharecroppers from Champaran also began to move or arrive on foot to see their champion, that is Gandhi, to meet their champion. Muzaffarpur lawyers called on Gandhi to brief him. So why he had gone to Muzaffarpur? He had gone to Muzaffarpur to gather more information about indigo sharecropper situation. And so he met with influential people. He met the lawyers who could give him more information, and the lawyers briefed him because they had a very good idea about the problems that the sharecroppers were facing, because most of the time it was these lawyers only who were representing the cases of the sharecroppers in the court of law. And in the meantime, the lawyers also told them about their cases and reported the size of their fee. So they informed him about the problem that the sharecroppers were facing. They also informed Gandhi about how much they charged from the sharecropper for fighting their case in the court of law. So as soon as they told Gandhi about the money that they were charging from the sharecroppers for fighting their case, Gandhi scolded the lawyers for collecting big fee from the sharecroppers. So Gandhi was not impressed with that information. He scolded the lawyers and he said that that was wrong for that they were collecting such a large amount of money from the sharecropper. He said, "I have come to the conclusion that we should stop going to law courts. Taking such cases to courts does little good. Where the peasants are so crushed and fear-stricken, law courts are useless. The real relief for them is to be free from fear." Now, after listening to the lawyers, Gandhi comes to the conclusion that representing the case of the sharecroppers in the court of law is useless. He says that the people or the sharecroppers are so fear-stricken, so frightened, that going to the law courts are useless. The real relief will be to free them from the fear. So, this is important. You keep this in mind. So, he says, representing the case in the court of law is useless. Going to the law court is useless because they are so frightened from inside. So, he says that his mission will be accomplished if he can free them from the fear that they suffer from. Now, we come to the problem that the indigo sharecroppers face. Now, before I read this part, let me just try and explain what the problem is. Most of the arable land, arable is cultivable land in the Champaran district were divided into large estates owned by Englishmen and worked by Indian tenants. The chief commercial crop was indigo. The landlords compelled all tenants to plant 328 or 15% of their holdings with indigo and surrender the entire indigo harvest as rent. This was done by long-term contract. Presently, now let me just explain. Now, the estates in Champaran district was divided into the land, cultivable land was divided into large estates. Let's say this is the estate. Okay, the area. Now, it was owned by British landlord and the Indian tenants would work out there. So, this British landlord forced the Indian tenants to plant 15%. This is, let's say, this is 15%. This is 15% of the land, total land. So, what the British landlord did was they forced the Indian tenants to plant indigo in the 15% of the land and surrender this complete produce to the landlord as rent. Now, why they force the people to cultivate indigo in 15% of the land? The reason was this, that indigo was a commercial crop. It had high monetary value in the international market and it was a very profitable business. And that is why they forced the landlords forced the peasants to cultivate 15% of the land with indigo and surrender the entire indigo produce to them as rent. Now, it was done with by a long-term contract and they had signed a contract. And so, since they had signed a contract, they cannot move out of it, this arrangement. Now, this is what had happened. This was the provision. After some time, what had happened is, the landlords came to know that Germany had developed synthetic indigo or artificial indigo. So when Germany developed synthetic indigo, the demand for the natural indigo came down. And before this information reached the peasants or the sharecroppers, the landlords they gave an offer to the sharecropper by telling them that we understand that this arrangement of cultivating 15% of the land with indigo and surrendering the entire produce as rent is very, very troublesome to you. And that is why we have decided that in case you pay us compensation, so we'll relieve you or we'll release you from this arrangement. So it was definitely troublesome. It was irksome, cumbersome for the peasants. So many of them who had money paid the money so that they will be released from this arrangement. Many who did not have money were forced to pay the money by the landlords. So in that way, the landlords extracted money from the peasants and freed them or released them from the ancient arrangement of sharecropping or planting indigo in the 15% of the land and surrendering the entire produce. Now, after some time, what happened is the sharecroppers also, the peasants also came to know about this news of Germany developing synthetic indigo, and then they felt that they had been cheated by the landlords. Because ultimately, what would have happened? The sharecropping business would not have remained as profitable as before, and ultimately, this arrangement would have disappeared. But before this information could reach the peasant, the landlord extracted the money. And when the peasants came to know about it, they felt cheated and they wanted their money back. So this was the problem of the Champaran people. Now, I'll just continue. Presently, the landlords learned that Germany had developed synthetic indigo. I talked about it. They thereupon obtained agreements from the sharecroppers to pay them compensation for being released from the 15% arrangement. So they made this agreement. The sharecropping arrangement was troublesome to the peasant and many signed willingly. So some who did not sign, they were forced to pay the money by engaging thugs. Meanwhile, the information about synthetic indigo reached the illiterate peasants who had signed and they wanted their money back. So this was the major problem. And it was at this point that Gandhi arrived in Champaran. Now the sharecroppers felt cheated of the money which the landlords had taken from them, and that is when Gandhi came to Champaran. First, he began by trying to get the facts. First, he visited the secretary of the British Landlord Association. So, this was when Gandhi came to Champaran district. So, first he went to the chairman of the British Landlord Association, secretary, of the British Landlord Association to gather information about it. But the secretary told him that he could not provide any information to an outsider. The secretary refused to provide any information to Gandhi and called him an outsider. Gandhi answered that he was no outsider. So Gandhi felt hurt. He said, I am not an outsider. Next, since the secretary did not provide him with any information, so he went to the British Official Commission of the Tirhat district of the Champaran district. So the commissioner, he met the commissioner of the district. So expecting that the commissioner will help him. But Gandhi writes that the commissioner proceeded to bully him and advise him to leave Tirhat, the division. So instead of cooperating with Gandhi, the commissioner threatened Gandhi, started bullying him and asked him to leave that place. Gandhi did not leave. Instead, he proceeded to Motihari. So we see that from Rajendra Prasad's house in Patna, he had gone to Muzaffarpur. And after Muzaffarpur, he had come to Champaran. So in Champaran, when he did not get any help from the secretary of the British Landlord Association as well as the commissioner who asked him to leave that place, he went to Motihari, the capital of Champaran. Several other people, also influential people, lawyers, that is, accompanied him. At the railway station, a vast multitude greeted Gandhi. He went to the house and, using it as a headquarter, continued his investigation. So he went to Motihari, started his findings or worked on the findings, and then a report came in that a peasant had been maltreated in a nearby village. And at that time, when he was in Motihari, he got an information that in a nearby village, a peasant was manhandled. He was beaten up by the landlord. So Gandhi decided to go and see him. So he started out. So he proceeded in the back of an elephant. He started out on the back of an elephant. And he had not proceeded far when the police superintendent messenger overtook him and ordered him to return to town in his carriage. Gandhi complied. So when he started proceeding to see the peasant, the police commissioner sent him a message and asked him to not go there. So Gandhi accepted. The messenger drove Gandhi home and served him with an official notice to quit Champaran immediately. And then the commissioner gave him a notice asking him to leave the district. Gandhi signed a receipt for the notice and wrote on it that he would disobey the order. In consequence, Gandhi received a summons to appear in the court the next day. So after receiving the summons, he signed that note and he signed that yes, I got the order, but he refused to leave Champaran district. And he had already written in that order that he will disobey the order. So because of that, he was called to the court. All night, Gandhi remained awake. He telegraphed Rajendra Prasad to come from Bihar with influential friends. He sent instruction to the ashram. He wired full report to the viceroy. So when he was summoned to the court, Gandhi decided to plan a strategy as to how he will be able to win over his arguments in the court. And then he started calling influential people and friends. Morning found the town of Motihari black with peasants. What happened in the morning is this town where he was, Motihari, was black with peasants. Means people everywhere in that district came to know that the person who had come to help them was in some kind of trouble with the authorities. They did not know Gandhi. They did not know about his contribution in South Africa also. But they knew that their champion, the person who had come to help them, was in trouble with the authorities. And so everybody came to help Gandhi to Motihari. And so the morning found the town of Motihari black with peasants. They did not know Gandhi's record in South Africa. They had merely heard that a Mahatma who wanted to help them was in trouble with the authorities. Their spontaneous demonstration in thousands around the courthouse was the beginning of the liberation from fear of the British. This was the first time that everybody came together. All the peasants came together, supporting Gandhi. And Gandhi says this was the beginning of their freedom from fear. Now they are no longer frightened. They are backing Gandhi up. So this is the first step, Gandhi says, of their liberation from fear, freedom from fear. The officials felt powerless without Gandhi's cooperation. He helped them regulate the crowd. Now even the authorities also felt powerless because they could not control the crowd. So it was Gandhi who could direct the crowd, and it was only Gandhi to whom the crowd listened. So because he was very, very polite, friendly, so they felt powerless, the officials. And Gandhi, he was giving them concrete proof that their might here is strength, that their strength hitherto, before that, dreaded and unquestioned, could be challenged by Indians. Now, previously, the Britishers thought that nobody can challenge them. Whatever they say is the rule. But Gandhi was giving them proof that no, your strength, which had never been challenged, and questioned, can not only be questioned but also be challenged by the Indians. The government was baffled, puzzled. They did not know what to do. The prosecutors requested the judge to postpone the trial. So apparently the authorities wished to consult their superior. Now Gandhi was summoned to the court and he had the backing of all the peasants. He had the backing of the masses. Okay, huge number of people supported him. The town of Motiari was black with peasants, and the authorities felt powerless because they could not regulate or control the crowd. And Gandhi was giving them proof that your strength, which you thought could never be a question, can not only be questioned but also be challenged by the Indians. So they did not know what to do. Gandhi protested against the delay and he pleaded guilty. He said, yes, I am wrong. In the court, Gandhi accepted that he was wrong. He was involved, he told the court, in a conflict of duty. This is also important. You need to understand this very carefully. So he says that why did he disobey the order to leave the Champaran district? Because he was served a notice by the commissioner, okay, to leave the Champaran district, but he had decided to disobey the order. Now, that is why he had been summoned to the court. So, in the court, he said, yes, I am wrong in whatever I did, but he gave the reason. He says, I was caught in a conflict of duty. What is this conflict of duty? He says, serving the peasants for which he had come to Champaran was also his duty. Obeying the order of the commissioner was also his duty. So both are his duties. And he got confused as to which duty he should fulfill. And then he decided to listen to the voice of his own conscience. His voice, the conscience told him that he should fight for the peasants of the Champaran district. So that is the conflict of duty. So how does Gandhi explain it? He says, on the one hand, not to set a bad example as a lawbreaker, on the other to render the humanitarian and national service for which he had come. So first, he says that both are his duty. He never wanted to prove to be a lawbreaker by disobeying the order of the commissioner. But at the same time, he also says that he also wanted to do humanitarian and national service for which he had come. He had come for the humanitarian and national service, that is the help, or to help the indigo sharecroppers who were in trouble. So he says, I disobeyed the order to leave, not because I do not respect authority, but because I listen to the higher law of our being. I listen to the voice of my conscience. Both are his duties. He wanted to follow both. He is a law-abiding citizen. He says that, like following the order of the commissioner is my duty, similarly doing the national and humanitarian service for which I have come, that is to help the indigo sharecropper, is also my duty. Now, when both these duties come face to face, which am I supposed to choose? So then what I did is I listened to the voice of my conscience. Voice of my conscience means antar atma ki awaz in Hindi. So his conscience or antaratma, his conscience told him that you should fight for the indigo sharecroppers. You should do the humanitarian and national service for which you have come. And that is why he says that I disobeyed the order of the commissioner, and so whatever punishment you want to give me, you can give me. So he has the penalty due. The magistrate announced that he would pronounce the sentence after a 2-hour recess and asked Gandhi to furnish bail. Anyway, the magistrate also does not know as to what he is supposed to do, and after that he leaves him. When the court reconvened, the judge said that he will not deliver the judgment for several days. Meanwhile, he allowed Gandhi to remain at liberty. So because of the pressure, that pressure created by the mass or the huge mass support that Gandhi had, the authorities felt powerless. They were unable to give him any punishment. And they told him that, okay, you can remain free and then we'll decide and we'll tell you what punishment. So Rajendra Prasad, Braj Kishore Babu, Maulana Mazharul Haq, and several other prominent lawyers had arrived from Bihar. They conferred with Gandhi. So they had a meeting. What would they do if he was sentenced to prison, Gandhi asked. Now, Gandhi questioned the influential people, Rajendra Prasad and his lawyer friends, that what they are going to do if the British decides to imprison Gandhi. So one of the senior lawyer replied that they had come they had come to Champaran in order to help Gandhi. So if he is imprisoned, they will go back because there would be nobody to advise to. So when he gave a reply that he will go back, Gandhi asks him, "What about the injustice to the sharecropper?" Gandhi demanded, "Okay, since you say that if I am imprisoned, you will go back to the place where you came from, then what about the injustice to the sharecroppers?" And then the lawyers decided to consult. They thought among themselves. Now, this is their consultation. This is the consultation of the lawyers. They thought among themselves that Gandhi was a complete stranger. In spite of being a complete stranger to the people of Champaran, he was ready to fight for the injustice that was meted to the indigo sharecroppers. And these lawyers were not strangers to the people of Champaran, because most of the time they represented the case of the sharecroppers in the court of law. So if at this juncture they run away, okay, being resident of adjoining district, then it will be a shameful desertion. Okay, so they realize that Gandhi, in spite of being a stranger, was ready to fight for these people, and they who are actually acquaintances, means actually from the adjoining district, if they run away, then it will be a kind of desertion, dhoka. And so they decided that, okay, they told Gandhi. They accordingly went to Gandhi and told him that, okay, if in case Gandhi is jailed, then they will also quote arrest. They will also get arrested. And at this point, Gandhi makes a remark: the battle of Champaran is won. Now, when the lawyers also start supporting him, okay, everybody comes under one umbrella. On the one side, we have the peasants who are ready, or who are backing Gandhi up, and then we have the influential people also, like the lawyers and other influential people who say that if Gandhi is arrested, they will also quote arrest, they will also get arrested. That means that this was the first time a mass movement was growing, where everybody came under the same umbrella. And Gandhi remarks, the battle of Champaran is already won, he says. He explained. Then he took a piece of paper and he divided the group. So he said, okay, in case I am arrested, so this is how you are to quote arrest. Several days later, he received a communication from the court that the case has been dismissed, and communication from the magistrate informing him that the lieutenant governor of the province has ordered the case to be dropped. Civil disobedience had triumphed. Triumph is victorious. The first time in modern India, this was the first time that the civil disobedience movement had been victorious. Okay, because they were so powerless that they decided to drop the case against Gandhi. Gandhi and the lawyers now proceeded to conduct a far-flung inquiry. So this part, Gandhi started conducting inquiry into the problems of the sharecroppers. They started making notes. The complaints and all were all written down. Documents were collected. And in June, Gandhi was summoned to Sir Edward Gate, the lieutenant governor. So in the month of June, Gandhi was called by the lieutenant governor. So Gandhi had 4 protracted delayed interviews with the governor, who as a result ordered an official commission of inquiry into the indigo sharecropping situation. So after having 4 meetings with the lieutenant governor, inquiry commission was set up to look into the problem. The commission consisted of, now this was also commission was also biased, in a sense prejudice. The commission consisted of landlords, government officials, and Gandhi was the only representative of the peasants. So this inquiry commission, which was set up to look into the problem of the indigo sharecroppers, consisted of the landlords. The landlords were their representatives. Okay, the government officials were there, and who was there from the peasant side? It was only Gandhi. Gandhi was the sole representative, only representative of the peasant. Anyway, Gandhi did not mind that. Gandhi remained in Champaran for an initial uninterrupted period of 7 months and then again for several shorter visits. The visit undertaken casually on the request. Now, Gandhi never thought that this Champaran episode will uh, engage so much time of his life. So he had just casually taken the visit on the request of an unlettered peasant. Who is this unlettered peasant? It's Rajkumar Shukla, in the expectation that it would last a few days, occupied almost a year of Gandhi's life. Gandhi previously had thought that it will last only 3 or 4 days, but it took almost a year of Gandhi's life. So this official inquiry was set up. This inquiry found out that yes, the peasants have been wronged and the landlords had cheated the peasants and extorted money from them unlawfully, and that is why they agreed. So everybody agreed that to make refunds to the peasants. So the inquiry commission came out with the report that yes, the peasants have been cheated and the money should be refunded. Whatever money was extorted from them should be refunded to them. But the question was, how much should we pay? As they asked Gandhi. Now the question was, how much of the money are they supposed to pay? So when they asked Gandhi, they thought that Gandhi would ask for 100% refund, illegal, which they had illegally taken from the sharecroppers. Gandhi said 50%. Gandhi agreed that you only refund them 50%. There, everybody felt that Gandhi was adamant that he will not go below 50. So, thinking probably that he would not give way, the representative of the planters offered to refund to the extent of 25%, and to his amazement, Mr. Gandhi took him at his word, thus breaking the deadlock. Now, when Gandhi said 50%, okay, you refund 50% of the money that you have illegally taken, or which you have cheated from the sharecroppers. So they thought that if they go down, like if they say 25%, Gandhi will not agree, and then the matter will not get solved. There will be a deadlock. So they told Gandhi that no, they will not pay 50%, they are ready to pay 25%. And as soon as they say 25%, Gandhi agreed. Gandhi said, okay, pay 25%. Thus, the arrangement was done. This settlement was adopted unanimously. Everybody agreed to it. Even the sharecroppers were happy that they were getting at least 25% of the money. Gandhi explained afterwards that money was not important. Gandhi explained that the amount of refund was less important than the fact that landlords had been obliged to surrender part of the money and with it part of the prestige. So he says what is more important is that the landlords, they have surrendered money, and along with the money, whatever money, 25% of the money they have surrendered, and along with that money they have lost their prestige also. Therefore, as far as peasants were concerned, the planters had behaved as lords. Now the peasants saw. Now this is the first time that the peasants also felt very, very confident. Now the peasants saw that he had rights and defenders. Who are the defenders? People like Gandhi, the lawyers and all were fighting their cases in the court of law. Okay, so the peasant, they learned courage. So remember, previously he had said that the real freedom for them will be the liberation from fear. So now he had taught them courage, because they know that if something wrong is done to them, then they can fight against the British landlord and they can win also. So Gandhi taught them courage. The peasants realized that not only do they have rights, but they also have people who are ready to defend them. So he learned courage. Even justified, and Gandhi was right, even justified Gandhi's position. Within a few years, the British planters abandoned their estate, left their estates, which reverted to the peasants. Indigo sharecropping disappeared. So Gandhi was right. After a few years, what happened is the Britishers left India, and the land which was there came back to the peasants. Now, this is where we end the Champaran. This is the first part that I talked about. This is the first part. This is where the Champaran episode ends. The problem is solved. Now, Gandhi's work is done. Gandhi could have gone back to where he had come from. But Gandhi was never contented or satisfied with the larger political or economic solution. Gandhi, at that time, he saw the cultural and social backwardness of the Champaran villages and wanted to do something about it immediately. Now, at this point, Gandhi could have left Champaran district because his objective was accomplished. The reason why he had come there was completed. So he could have left, but Gandhi saw that the people were very, very poor. Okay, so much of backwardness was there. So he decided to do something for them. He appealed for teachers. So this is what Gandhi did. He appealed for teachers, Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parikh, two young men who had joined Gandhi as disciple, and their wives volunteered for the work. So he asked his followers, okay, to volunteer their services as teachers. So Narhari Parikh and Mahadev Desai, along with their wives, they agree to teach the people of the Champaran district. Several more people came from Bombay, Pune, and other distant part of the land. Devdas, that is Gandhi's youngest son, arrived with Mrs. Gandhi. Primary schools were opened in 6 villages. Kasturbai taught the ashram rules and personal cleanliness and community sanitation. So, instead of going back to where he came from, he decided to do something. He decided to contribute to Champaran district, and that is why he asked people to volunteer their services as teachers. Many people volunteered along with Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parikh with their wives. Okay, even Gandhi's youngest son Devdas and his wife came, and 6 schools were opened in villages. And even his wife Kasturbai taught ashram rules and personal cleanliness and community sanitation. Now that was the first thing, opening of schools. The second thing that Gandhi did was health condition. He saw that the health condition was miserable. So Gandhi got a doctor to volunteer his services for 6 months. So he asked doctors to volunteer their services in Champaran district. So 3 medicines were available: castor oil, quinine and sulfur ointment. So only 3 medicines were available with the doctors, and anybody who showed a coated tongue was given a dose of castor oil. Anybody with malaria fever received quinine plus castor oil. Anybody with skin eruption or boil or something of that sort received ointment plus castor oil. Gandhi noticed the filthy state of women's clothes. So he also saw the problems, the backwardness that the women were suffering from. He asked his wife Kasturbai to speak to the woman, and they were living in a pathetic condition. So one woman took Kasturbai to her hut and said, "Look, there is no box or cupboard here for clothes. The sari I am wearing is the only one I have." So this is the condition that the people in the Champaran district were living in. Anyway, during his long stay in Champaran, Gandhi kept a regular watch in the ashram. So this is the second part. This is where the second part comes to an end. The Champaran episode was a turning point in Gandhi's life. What I did, he explained, was a very ordinary thing. I declared that the British cannot order me about in my own country. Now, this was the turning point. As I mentioned before also, prior to Champaran episode, nobody knew Gandhi. But after Champaran episode, Gandhi came to the limelight and everybody knew Gandhi and his contribution. So he says that, I did not do anything out here. Only thing that I did in Champaran was I told the British that they cannot order me in my own country. But Champaran did not begin as an act of defiance. Gandhi also said that he went to Champaran. He did not go to Champaran to challenge the British. It grew out of an attempt. He went to Champaran to help the indigo sharecropper, and in trying to help the indigo sharecroppers, he came in conflict with the British. So that is why you cannot say that Gandhi went to Champaran to challenge the British or it was an act of defiance. No, it was an act of compassion. Okay, it was because of the indigo sharecroppers. He wanted to remove the problem, elevate the distress or remove the problem of the indigo sharecroppers, and that is why he had gone. And in removing the problem, he had to face the British. So this was the typical Gandhi pattern. His politics was interconnected with the practical day-to-day problem of millions. His was not a loyalty to abstraction, it was a loyalty to living human beings. In everything Gandhi did, moreover, he tried to mold a new free India who could stand. Now, Gandhi was the one who created a new India, okay, a new Indian, free Indian who could stand on their own feet and make India free. So that is where the second part ends. Now, this is the third part. This is the third part. Early in the Champaran episode, now let me just explain what it is. So during the Champaran episode, there was a man, Englishman by the name of Charles Freer Andrews. Now, Charles Freer Andrews was a pacifist. Pacifist is somebody who hated war or was against war. Now, he was a devoted follower of Gandhi. And due to some urgent work, he had to go out, and so he came to Gandhi to say farewell to him because he had to go to duty in Fiji Island. Now, this was during the Champaran movement only. So, Gandhi's lawyer friends thought that if an Englishman, because Charles Freer Andrews was an Englishman, if he remains with Gandhi and fights for them, okay, taking their side, then they have a better chance of winning the Champaran battle. So they told Charles Freer Andrews not to go to the Fiji Island and to remain there and help them in their fight against the British. Andrews was also willing if Gandhi agreed. So he said that if Gandhi wants me to stay, I am ready to stay. But Gandhi became very angry when he came to know about it. But Gandhi was vehemently opposed. He said, you think that in this unequal fight it would be helpful if we have an Englishman by our side? This shows the weakness of your heart. The cause is just and you must rely upon yourself to win the battle. You should not seek a prop in Mr. Andrews because he happens to be an Englishman. So when Gandhi came to know as to why the lawyers wanted Charles Freer Andrews to stay back and not go to the Fiji Island, Gandhi scolded the lawyers. He says that you feel that if Mr. Andrews stays here, then we have a better chance of winning. That means you do not believe in yourself. Okay, that shows that you are weak. You are weak at heart. He says, the cause for which we are fighting is just. We are right. We are on the right path. And definitely, we must rely upon it. You must rely upon yourself to win the battle. So when you believe that you are right, so definitely you don't require somebody else to tell you that you are right. And definitely the victory will be yours. So you should not ask Charles Freer Andrews to stay here and support us. He had read our minds correctly, writes Rajendra Prasad. As we had no reply, Gandhi in this way taught us a lesson in self-reliance. This is how Gandhi taught them a lesson in self-reliance. You must believe in yourself. You must rely on yourself. Because since you know that you are right, you must rely on yourself. You should not take support from others just because that might prove beneficial to you. So this is what how he teaches the people of Champaran or the lawyers and the people associated a lesson in self-reliance. Self-reliance, Indian independence, and help to the sharecropper were all bound together. So this is the end. So again, once again, a quick recollection. The first part talks about the Champaran episode as to how Rajkumar Shukla requested Gandhi to come to Champaran and help the indigo sharecropper. On his request, Gandhi comes to Champaran. Okay, so Champaran episode is Gandhi's first major movement. Prior to Champaran, nobody knew Gandhi, but after Champaran movement only, he came to the limelight. Now, after the Champaran, now we talk about the second part. After the Champaran episode, Gandhi could have gone back, but Gandhi saw the social and cultural backwardness of the people of Champaran, so he decided to do something for them. In response, he opened schools, healthcare facilities, and asked his followers to volunteer for it. And the third part, he teaches the people a lesson in self-reliance. So I hope with this you have understood this chapter. So thank you very much. We'll meet again with the next chapter.